Hello and welcome to Bobbin Sewing School. My name is Ali Warner. I've been dressmaking and altering clothes for the last 30 years and I've been teaching for the last 7 of those. Today I'd like to show you how to professionally hem a pair of jeans. I'll be giving you tips and tricks along the way using your basic sewing machine. So let's make a start. To start, I'm going to give you some ideas of the equipment you're going to need as well as your sewing machine. Here's your tape measure, your pins, some chalk or another marking pen for fabrics. You might want to find your sharpest dressmaking scissors. So fabric scissors, dressmaking scissors, as long as they haven't been used to cut paper, that's always a great start. So some nice sharp dressmaking scissors. When you come to cut through the seams on the fabric, you will benefit from having those. You might want to take a ruler. It's not a desperately necessary piece of equipment, but if you've got one, have it to hand. One of the most important things when you're taking up jeans is to use the correct needle in your sewing machine, and a jeans needle is the one that's going to do the job for you. So it has a very sharp point that cuts through the denim, and it just penetrates through all the thicknesses of the denim as you're sewing. This one is a size 90, that's the metric measurement. 14 is imperial. They're usually standard 90-14 jeans needles. So have those. Don't try to do it with your universal needle. You'll find that you'll come across a few little hitches if you do. You might decide to use top stitch thread, in which case you'll need a top stitch needle, and this as well will be quite useful for going through the thicknesses of your denim. The hole in that is slightly bigger to allow for the top stitch thread. We're not going to be using top stitching today as a top stitched thread. We're going to be using regular sewing thread, but these are an alternative to your jeans needle. When you choose your thread to match the colour of the existing top stitching on your jeans. That way you'll get a very professional finish. This is a top stitch thread. It is thicker. You'll see it's thicker there. It's not quite the right shade, so we're going to be using this nice golden shade here, and this is just a general all-purpose polyester sewing thread. Along with that, you might find, if you've got one of these, that you can use this little gadget called a humper jumper. It's not necessary. I'll show you how we'll be using that later on if you have one. Right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to determine the length of our finished jeans. So there are two ways to do this. You can choose to measure an existing pair of jeans that you feel really comfortable in, and you're going to measure the inside leg seam. So you take your tape measure right to the top of the inside leg seam, which is where the crotch starts, and you measure down. So I'm going to measure down, and in this instance I need to mark up to this point here, which is the 61 centimetres, and I'm just going to put a pin in that point there. So that's the finished, this will be for the finished length. The other way is to pop them on and to pin them up so that you find the length that you're happy with. So you'll have a couple of pins. You don't need lots and lots of pins. You just need one at the front and one at the back if they're sitting nicely, and that will determine the finished length at this point here. Okay, so we're going to check the distance from the pin to the hem, to the existing hem that we're going to be taking these trousers up. In this case, it's going to be 6 centimetres. So I'm just going to take another pin and I'm just going to pop it in at the 6 centimetre point there. So 6 centimetres, and here another pin just there. And check on the other side, is that the same? And yes, it is. So that will keep us in line. So I'm now going to just fold in that line. of pins. So the pins just come onto the edge of the fold of the fabric there. And I'm going to give it a quick finger press just to keep it flat before I take my iron and press that crease into place. Okay, so I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to just give it a little steam on that edge. Jeans love a bit of steam, so that's good. So just give yourself a really good press on that finished line there. When I take that out, you'll have a great crease line across here. It's important when you take up your jeans that you try to create the same effect and same distance of hem, of stitching to the hem. So I'm just going to take my tape measure and I'm just going to measure the distance, the depth rather, of the hem. So it's, in this case it's 1.5 centimeters. So I'm going to double that 1.5 centimeters and I'm going to take my chalk and I'm going to mark 3 centimeters down from the creased line there. So from the crease that we've just created with the iron, I'm just going to mark 3 centimeters down. Now you can just do a few little marks, or indeed if you prefer you can actually draw this with a ruler all the way along here, like so. So if you want to and you feel you'd be happier, just fill in with a ruler to give yourself a proper line across the trouser leg. Right, now I'm going to take my really sharp dressmaking scissors and I'm just going to cut the hem off. So it's probably best, if you haven't done this before, to just work one layer at a time. You can just cut straight across, but it's best to work one layer at a time so that you can cut along those marked points there. It's quite tough across the seams. There we are. Okay, so once we've cut off our excess fabric, we can then make our rolled hem. So it's a rolled hem that is on the jeans. So we're going to take the raw edge and we're going to put the raw edge up against the fold that we created with our steam iron. So the raw edge goes to the fold and then we're going to roll it once more in so that you're back to your pressed edge at that point. So I'm going to do that all the way round my hem. I'm going to press that, roll that hem in to create this lovely finish. So again, a few pins just to hold it in place. There we are. Just check as you go that your seams are laying as they should do. So if you find that your seams are twisting over, then make sure you press them with your fingers just over so that they lay in the correct position underneath that turned in hem there. And now we're ready to go to our machine. Now we're going to set our machine up correctly to hem our jeans. So we're going to use a straight stitch and we are going to extend the stitch length. If your machine is set for regular sewing, we're just going to make the stitch length a little bit longer. So we're using a 3.5 stitch length. Now you'll notice I'm just using a very basic machine. It will do the job perfectly for you. You don't need any fancy equipment, but it's really important, going back to what we're using, to replace your needle with your jeans needle. Now I'm going to bring my jeans hem and I'm going to bring it to a position under the foot here, under the presser foot. So always start your hem on the inner leg seam. So that's the inside leg seam. So I'm going to lift the presser foot and lower it down so that the needle starts on that seam. What you might find is that your presser foot is angling upwards. So this is going to cause you a few issues when you start, because the feed dogs and the presser foot are not going to be able to pull the fabric through where it's really thick. So we can do things. We could use a little gadget. This is called a humper jumper. I think that's its common name. And we can use that to lift the foot up at the back, or we can just roll up a piece of scrap fabric and we can just position that underneath the foot, not underneath where you're sewing, but just underneath the back of the foot to lift the foot level with the seam. So there we are. So I've positioned that into place. And now I'm ready to I'm just going to push that over a little bit. Now I'm ready to pop my needle down into my fabric and start to sew. As I start to sew, I'm going to take my pins out. So it's important that you have your pins positioned, if you're right-handed, so that the pins are at right angles to your hem, and you can take them out easily as you work round your hem here. I'm just going to sew round. This fabric's a little bit stretchy. This denim has got a little bit of stretch in it. So don't pull the fabric or pull the fabric forwards. Just let the feed dogs of the machine do the work there. Just gonna take that over. That seam there wasn't too thick. The machine coped with it quite well. Okay, here we are. We're nearly round to the beginning. Keep those threads out of the way as you come up to meet your starting stitches. And again, I'm going to just use this little lift to help me get back on top of that line of stitching. And just sew over your original stitch line on that seam and reverse. You'll notice there's a bit of reverse on most jeans hems where they're started and finished, and then we can pull this away from the machine when we're done. There we are. I'm going to cut my threads off. 1, 2, they're quite secure because we've done our reverse stitching there. 1, 2, and there we have a nicely stitched hem all the way round.